Have you ever been skiing? I've never been skiing, but I've already got what I think is the fear of the slope, because that's basically all I've encountered making this basic trouser block. It feels really wrong. All the measurements look so long. That's kind of like what I'm going to walk you guys through. So much longer than they should be, and then they just have like these little flicks. I've made it simple, it's animated, these little flicks to end it. Little flicks. It's color coded. Also, not a lot of maths. I like to take the maths out of this stuff. So let's make a basic trouser pattern. Shall we? Okay, let's start with measurements. So for this, let's start with the horizontal measurements you'll need. So from the top, you'll need the circumference of the waist, of the hip, the thigh. I don't use the thigh measurement, but I never think it hurts to take it anyway, just to be sure. I skip leg day. You're also going to need the knee and the ankle. In terms of vertical measurements, you're going to want to take the outside leg, that'll determine the length of the trouser pattern, and the inside leg, which is really important for knowing where your crotch line will be, which, as you can imagine, a lot of what you do with the trousers is based around the crotch. A way that I like to make sure that my crotch line is going to be in the right place is by taking, I don't really know what it's called, I kind of just like straddle the tape measure, and I hold one part up to my belly button and the other part up to the small of my back, and that measurement divided by 2 usually is in the same ballpark as the difference between the outside leg and the inside leg, and that's where your crotch line will be. Awesome, so let's start drawing things. To begin the process of putting in our frame, I first like to just mark down the length of my outside leg for this one and where each horizontal line will sit on this outside leg. So from the top of your sheet to the bottom of your fabric, whatever, just draw the entire length of the outside leg. The top, you'll understand, will be the waist, and the bottom will be the ankle. So you can mark in a guideline for them just now. So from the bottom, we're going to put in our inside leg. So measure that all the way up to the top, and wherever the inside leg stops, that's where your crotch line will be on the outside leg. Mark in a guideline. Now, interestingly, 1/20th of the hip circumference up from the crotch line should be where your hip will be. So measure that up, strike it across, and you have the guideline for your hip. And I think the only other thing we're missing is the knee. So another cool one, half of the inside leg, but go up 6 centimeters, drawing a guideline. That's where your knobblies will be. Like, that's where the knees are. I don't know why it's 6 centimeters. It just works. It just works, so accept it. Pattern making has magic numbers. I find it hard to accept, but they're there, they work. Now let's go back up to the waistline, and we're going to put in our waist measurement, which is 1/4 of the waist circumference along, plus a little bit of ease, and 1 centimeter. Very stretchy fabric, not a lot of ease. Very stiff fabric, lots of ease. From this point, just mark it down. You can go a little bit beyond the crotch line, but again, this is just a guideline for now. Now, where that waistline meets the hip line, we're going to measure across 1/20th of the hip circumference and make a mark. This will help us find the center of our pattern, because what we'll do next is measure halfway between that point and the outside leg and make a mark right up and down the length of the entire pattern. This will be really useful for finding our knees and our ankles. You know what, let's just put them in just now, because we need to do the knees anyway. So go down to the ankle, 1/4 of the ankle circumference, take away 1 centimeter, make a mark, and do the exact same for the other side. And it's the same for the knees. We're going to go up to the knee line, 1/4 of the knee circumference, take away 1 centimeter, and make a mark. Okay, so we have our knees set. So let's join them up. So from the hip of the outside leg, we're gonna draw a diagonal line down to the knee, and that will be, that's this bit, it's here. We're marking this, we're marking here. Now if we focus on the crotch, from the hip line, draw a diagonal down towards the knee. And where it meets the crotch line, we're gonna make a mark. We're gonna take that measurement in the middle and divide that by 2. Now with this half measurement, we're gonna put that up the vertical from that crotch point, make a mark and create a little diagonal line down to that crotch point. And this will create the basis of where we'll put our curve when creating the crotch. And that's our frame. Now we can start actually distinguishing a front and a back. Let's do that now. Front panel, let's go. On the waistline, we're gonna measure in 1 centimeter. And from this point, we're gonna measure across 1/4 of the waist circumference and nip it up 1 centimeter, give it a little bit of a diagonal and mark that in. We can probably, from here, we can probably finish off the outside leg because there's not much witchcraft going on, because you should have a rough guide anyway from the frame. The only thing we're doing is curving a little bit at the top, curving a little bit on the way down. It's just kind of like rounding off the edges more than anything. But what I will say is, boys, we don't have curves. Look, straight up and down, straight up and down. So don't feel like you need to overly curve it. I've made this mistake before, and I've ended up with like trousers with hips, and we just don't have them. I mean, we might, but we usually don't. We're just like slabs of meat walls. Men bodies are like meat walls. From the top of the waist, let's do the other side. You can probably tell by the frame is also kind of good to go. So measure straight line down to the hip line, and then you have obviously your parameters for that curve. Swoop that down using a French curve or just freehanding it. It's hard to go wrong once you know what you're doing. And mark that way all the way down to the ankle, again smoothing out the edges. It looks so steep, which makes me always think it looks really, really wrong, but it's not. Like if I let me show you. Straight line, curve. Because if you look round, straight line, curve. There's not actually, you don't actually need to, there's no massive swoop because it just doesn't work like that. The measurement is kind of, it's steep, but you can trust it. And ladies and gentlemen, that is more or less that's your front panel. Let's go on to the back. The back is a little bit more interesting, so yeah. Cut that out, redraw it. But essentially we're working with that frame to begin with, again, in order to make our back panel. Where the hip line meets the center line, we're gonna go along 1/20th of the hip circumference, plus little ease, plus 1 centimeter. And from here, we're gonna go up 1/20th of the hip circumference, plus a little ease, but take away 1 centimeter. And we're gonna make a mark. From this mark, we're gonna measure along 1/4 of the hip circumference, and then measure down. You're just bringing it down to the hip line again. And I would create a little guideline just so you know. This, for me, is a visual reminder of the fact that we've basically tilted everything like this so that we've gave more room for the bum. And from this new point we made on the hip line, we're going to measure into the center line, then take that measurement and extend it all the way out to the other side, making a mark. This will help us later on when we go to make our crotch. Do you remember how we plotted in our ankles and our knees and they became quite important? Let's do them just now because it's a little bit differently for the back. So on the center line at the ankles, we're going to measure 1/4 of the ankle circumference plus 2 centimeters and make a mark. So on the knee line, 1/4 of the knee circumference plus 2 centimeters, and replicate that on the other side. And now we can kind of like do like a home run. So we're gonna go from the outside hip line, connect that to the new knee, and the new knee to the ankle, and the ankle to the ankle, and the ankle to the knee, and create a guideline from the knee up to our outside new hip point. And where that meets the crotch line, again, make that mark, but the difference being, I'm gonna go from here and move down 1.5 centimeters or 1.5 centimeters and make a mark. The reason it comes down 1.5 centimeters is to give you a better finish for your bum. I think if we just trusted the initial crotch point, we could have some puckering, and nobody wants any puckering around their bum. With the frame set, now comes probably the most uncomfortable part, which is actually drawing in our shape. But we haven't done the waist, which is the oddest one, because from where the waistline meets the center line, we're going to move along 3 centimeters, magic number, and we're going to go up 1/20th of the hip circumference plus a little ease plus 1 centimeter and make a mark. It feels really high, and we're going to put in our waist measurement down to our waistline, and that's going to feel really steep. But again, we're accounting for the bum, so that really long bum line that we're basically creating, as that comes out to make space for the bum, the waistline is going to flatten into the horizontal. So it does all work out. It just looks, to me, it looks hella wrong. From here, you can connect the waist to the outside hip, that little curve at the top, but not a very big one. It should be roughly kinda looking like your front panel one. So you can just smooth it all the way down and along. Now, top of the waist, the highest point, yeah? Top of the peak. Straight line all the way down to that very first mark we made that's just off the center line up from the hip. And then the curve happens from here right up until the end of the crotch. This looks so wrong. It is the most intimidating ski slope you'll ever look at, but it's correct. And we're done. You have a front and back pattern. Complicated little bastard, but good. Well done. Well done. The biggest lesson that I think that I took away from doing this is that when you're creating a basic trouser, and I'm guessing any kind of short trouser in the future, it's going to feel so wrong because those two straight lines, front and back, they feel so long and steep, and the curve is not a lot. But when you do this and you think about the fact that this is your bum going around, it doesn't require a lot of curve. So trust, it's right. It'll work for you. Trust me. And that is your trouser pattern. Ugh. That wasn't so bad, right? The hardest thing about finding out about this method of pattern making is that I was doing a lot of female tutorials because I figured how big a difference is there between the male anatomy and like the female anatomy, because the men have 2 eyes, women have 2 eyes. Turns out, big differences. And I kept getting those elephant ears at the side because we just don't have hips the way they have hips. And our bums are probably a lot smaller too. I'm going to continue on with my venture in this world with a costume, probably. I just said costume with cross-eyed. with the costume coming up next. So if you wanna see some of that stuff, do the thing. And other than that, I think until next time. I still can't get over how steep a straight line you need to account for your bum. Why is the bum so big? I mean, not complaining. Personally, quite like a big bum.